What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the Fringe. I know we've been talking about Mark Carney a lot, but well, we got to do it a little bit more. Mark Carney showing his two-faced nature once again, showing that this is nothing more than a grift to get into the prime minister's seat with this so-called leadership race. They might as well just call it an installation at this point. But it's very telling what the country is in for, should they decide to continue casting a ballot for Mark Carney in the future. I love how you see all these articles in the brainwash media coming out saying, oh, he's the only favorable choice to negotiate with Trump. He's the only choice for rebuilding Canada's economy. He's not going to make cuts like Pierre. The articles, it's too bad the ink comes off because it would make for good toilet paper. But let's be honest. New article coming out talking about his recent interviews where he's in plain sight showing his flip-flopping, worse than jagmeet Singh, I would add, as to what Canadians can expect when he takes the role of Canada's prime minister. The good silver lining here, folks, is not only has Mark Carney absolutely demolished his own voting structure with this article, but this is why I keep saying that we have to have some faith that if we stay vigilant, Canadians are going to be okay come the next federal election. Things are going to be all right. We need to make it too big to rig, as the Americans say, because once again, I've said it before, people can't afford this. And people are going to see by his actions that the walls are crumbling down on Mark Carney. Let's take a look. I want to shout out a good friend of the channel, Joe Lyman, for pointing me towards this article. I think it's fantastic. I wanted to cover it sooner, but we had other things to talk about. So shout out to Joe. Thank you for putting it this way. In fact, a lot of people send me articles a lot and help out this channel by recommending things to say. So shout out to everybody who does that. You guys are great. You guys are what keeps this channel alive and moving. Carney's campaign admits to muddled messaging on pipelines and spending cuts. Now, as we talk about pipelines, Quebec have said, of course, it's not socially acceptable. Then they've come back saying they might discuss it. And then again, back to socially unacceptable. I want to read this article because this really paints a picture for Mark Carney and how he's absolutely crippling his voting base. Liberal leadership candidate Mark Carney's campaign said it needs to tighten up his message after he said in English he would use federal emergency powers to push major energy projects through traditional roadblocks if he were prime minister. Okay, well, why does he need emergency powers to do that? If he was a good leader, he could just get it done. I love how he keeps touting emergency powers. Again, those two words should scare every Canadian when they think back to the pandemic. Why does the government need special privileges to government? I don't get it. But, however, he then told Quebecers in French that he would not impose any such projects on the province against its will. So I'm going to take a special grant of power to push this on you, but I'm not going to push it on you. Well, which is it, Mark? What are you saying here? His campaign is also walking back comments Carney made in French about cutting federal social transfers. Earlier this month, he said he would focus on reducing operational deficits by cutting transfers to provinces and individuals. Then on Monday, in French again, which is very terrible, he told a different interviewer he would never do such a thing. So he's playing partisan politics here. He's just saying what every demographic wants to hear him say in order to get their approval. This should be a huge red flag to anyone following this, saying, Mark, why can't you keep your story straight? Again, I know people are fed up with Pierre and his slogans, but at least they don't change from province to province. Give me a break, Mark. Mark Carney has been clear that he wants to build, baby, build. Oh, that's a terrible slogan. As he said in a speech in Kelowna, BC last week to 10 people, he said he wants to build housing, build a trade corridor with provinces and allies around the world, build clean energy products, and yes, build energy infrastructure. I think he stole that one from Pierre Poilievre. Doesn't that sound a little familiar? He has said in English that he will let nothing stand in his way of building what the country needs. A good way to pad his bank account in the World Economic Forum. That's what Mark Carney thinks this country needs. Something that my government will do is use all of the powers of the federal government, including the emergency powers of the federal government, to accelerate the major projects that we need in order to build the economy and take on the Americans, Carney said in his speech. This is where I said on yesterday's video, and it's important to follow me here. This is Trump derangement syndrome. We're going to fight and take on the Americans. This is his push to sow divisiveness, just as Trudeau's done. The thing is that while Justin Trudeau is a complete bumbling idiot, Mark Carney doesn't have the ability to bait Canadians the way Justin Trudeau did. We see through it because we've put up with 10 years of it already. We're used to this treatment. They're going to use, again, I will say it for the millionth time, they're going to use Donald Trump to try and push for their votes. But the fact that he's staying here saying, I'm going to use all the powers of the federal government, including emergency powers, that should scare the shit out of everybody. I'm going to do whatever it takes to get what I want. Yikes. He told the CBC this weekend, of course, that if he were prime minister, his government would specifically accelerate approvals for pipelines after years of the federal Liberal government canceling or blocking several pipeline proposals. Bullshit, sorry. We as a nation would need to build some new pipelines for conventional energy, he said. And he would do so in consultation with provinces and First Nations. And on Monday, he was more explicit. In a Radio Canada interview, journalist Patrice Roy asked Carney if he was going to impose a pipeline on Quebec. I would never impose. Maybe we do it in Mr. Burns. I would never impose. Never, he said. Excellent. He then said his government would use emergency powers at his disposal to accelerate projects that are in national interest, only with the support of the provinces and First Nations. I would never impose a pipeline on Quebec, he said. But then again, he said he would impose specific measures to put it through. Emergency measures. So which is it, Mark? TC Energy's East Pipeline proposal that would have shipped Alberta oil to New Brunswick was canceled in 2017 in the face of added federal regulatory hurdles and fierce opposition from Quebec. The regulatory hurdles were put in by the federal government in Quebec to squash any kind of development. This is just them pushing their own rhetoric. Sneaky Carney said in English in BC that he would use federal emergency powers to force provinces to accept big projects. In French, he said he would not impose them in provinces. Sneaky, said Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre. Sneaky Carney. I mean, first off, look at resting Burns' face on this guy. Excellent. As he sits to try and talk with people. Again, I've said I welcome the debate between him and Pierre Poilievre when it comes time for the federal election. Look at this. Mark Carney, Moose on the Loose, by the way, great channel. Shout out to David. Mark Carney could offer a sleep service for people with insomnia. Listening to him speak is about as captivating as a blank wall. I mean, I'm just going to play a little bit of this 2-minute clip to give you an idea of what we're talking about here. Let's listen to Sleepy Carney.
Released today sketches out considerable spending on infrastructure, technology, as well as a middle-class tax cut, financed entirely by savings found in government. I'm wondering how many billions of dollars you'll have to cut from the budget to finance your priorities.
So the first thing is, if I may say, and this is a critical point, what we're looking to be much more disciplined around is the programs of the government or any direct investment of the government, that it catalyzes many multiples of private investment, and that as a consequence of that, it's growing our economy.
Doesn't he sound like Kamala Harris? The significance of something being significant is that it's significant in itself to hold significant. I know I'm not quoting verbatim, but this guy's a joke. The reason I wanted to highlight this clip is that as he goes on here for another few seconds, he sounds like he's in a job interview. He's trying to convince people rather than give an answer. He doesn't actually directly answer this question in this 2-minute rant, by the way. I shouldn't even call it a rant. It's just a boring retort. But he sounds like he's in a job interview.
And so being very clear and disciplined and linkages between those, that's the first. The second is that we have looked, and there will be an appropriate point if I'm selected leader and move forward, to cost out directly and reveal those costings of the various measures that we put in place. I have worked in the federal public service. I assisted in that role in the preparation of 7 different budgets over time. I have seen both how to do program reviews, reviews of government spending that yields results, and how not to do it to yield results.
He's been involved in federal spending. If he's talking about his time hired by the Liberals, anybody can tell me the deficit that's gone up when the Liberals have claimed they're going to balance budgets forever? Isn't that another nail in the coffin for Mark Carney? If he's talking about the Bank of England, well, Mark, you completely decimated them. So, I mean, this guy is just a walking hypocrite. Charles Montgomery Burns for prime minister. He's terrible. He's terrible. This is why I keep telling people that no matter what you're seeing in the polls, no matter what you're hearing, guys, we're still winning this. Things are going to be okay. At least I would like to think so. Call me naive, call me whatever you want. I would like to think that we're going to be okay. If you need further proof of it, of why I think this country is on the mend, why I think we're in a better situation, there is hope with Pierre Poilievre. I know some people want to complain or moan about certain ties to things or his stance on a few things, but one thing I will say is that over the last few weeks, whenever you see how the Liberals are indoctrinating Canadians with the Team Canada approach and how much it's hurting Canadians moving forward and our image and our relationship with America, there's still hope with Pierre. Pierre Poilievre attended the recent Canada-America game, but unlike his Liberal counterparts, he didn't boo the American national anthem. He sang along with every word. Do you think he's a man of the people? I know the audio's loud here, but just take a listen to the reaction of Pierre in the stands at this game.
Pierre! Pierre! Let's go,
Isn't that awesome? Isn't it just awesome to see somebody who actually loves Canada? By the way, had his own crested jersey. His branding's always on point. In fact, when he was here for this Calgary Stampede last year, he had an Axe the Tax belt buckle. I mean, this guy gets it. He knows how to work around the people. He's good with people. He knows how to speak. It's something Mark Carney doesn't know how to do. And again, I welcome the debates between Mark Carney and Pierre Poilievre. I'm sure Mr. Burns will take a back seat during those debates and say, "Oh, I'm too ill to talk to people." Excellent. As as we move forward. I'm sorry, I'll drop the Mr. Burns if you guys want me to drop Mr. Burns. Nonetheless, ladies and gentlemen, let me know what you think. Is Mark Carney really just greasing the wheels to tell people what they want to hear? Is he really planning to just bend us over and screw us? I already know what the answer to that is, but let me know what you think down below. Nonetheless, and with that said, ladies and gentlemen, if it's your first time here, I hope this video has earned your subscription. Make sure as you're hitting that button, you click the bell for notifications. Join me live here on the channel each and every Friday night for Friday Night Fringe, our live streaming show, where I'm joined by the very beautiful Mrs. Fringe as we go back and forth with what happened this week in politics, what's coming up in the week ahead, as well as back and forth within the greatest YouTube community on the platform. We love to hear what you guys have to say each and every week inside of those live streams. I look forward to hearing what you have to say tonight and every Friday night, starting at 6 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Central, here on the channel. With that said, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you have a great rest of your day. I'll catch you on the next one.